should be enforced. So that would end the public determination benefit phase of that, and then the licensee would have to actually apply for the license, and that is another public process as well. The Environment and Natural Resources Committee, which perhaps Senator Savello will be able to speak to when he gets here, but we understand that they have many discussions about solid waste management in general. Some of them have to do with Juniper Ridge Landfill. There's a list on page 3 of the things that they've undertaken here in the past few years with regard to solid waste. The State and Local Government Committee, as we understand it, has not been involved in any issues related to the Juniper Ridge Landfill or solid waste management in general. And we do note there on the bottom of page 3 some of the other opportunities for public involvement with regard to Juniper Ridge that we did note. There's a joint citizen advisory committee for Juniper Ridge Landfill that has members from Old Town, from the town of Alton, and from the Penobscot Nation. They do get reports on various things going on at the landfill on a monthly basis. I mentioned the public meetings related to the public benefit determination process. And then there is a host community benefit agreement with the City of Old Town and a community benefit agreement with the town of Alton that includes monetary payments that Casella makes to both of those towns in relation to waste that's disposed at the landfill. The citizens that have been involved in this effort for a request of a review pointed out that it's since the towns themselves are somewhat dependent on the revenue that's coming from the landfill, that it's difficult for them to get their towns to engage in any concerns about the landfill, because within the clauses of the benefit agreements, host community benefit agreement, there is a clause that allows Casella to suspend payments to the town should the town appeal any permit or license decisions and determinations made either federally or at the state level for the period of the appeal. So I think it's fair to say from everything that's been provided to us so far that the citizens who have been concerned about this have felt they've had a bit of an uphill battle in getting their voices heard, although they've been very actively participating wherever there was an opportunity for a public process. I just feel that some of these things have happened without a public process that have resulted in the concerns that they have had to. So that's a summary of what we've learned about it so far. I'll be happy to answer any questions if I can.
Thank you, Director. Send us off.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have just a couple of questions. Number one, when we bought that for $1 or sold it, Juniper Pacific, Northern Paper, whatever, was it a size we were buying of land, or was it a capacity of what a land could hold? Because I'm hearing that there's interest in expanding that. Mm-hmm. And are we expanding actual size, so the deed would have to be changed? Or are we expanding capacity?
Senator, could I ask you to hold that thought for a minute? I apologize for interrupting, but Senator Savello is here now, and he told me he's been given a 5-minute pass.
Only because I love both of you when I allow that to happen.
Thank you very much, Senator.
Thank you, and I apologize. Our committee, as you know, has been working mining bills for, I think it's 50 hours in the last couple of weeks. That's why you don't have a response from us on this particular issue, but I thought I'd come down real quick. We are voting on the bill, but they're in partisan caucuses right now. Let me explain a little bit as I've gotten to know this issue, because I first got here 10 years ago, and this became one of the things we dealt with. Let me remind all of you that it was done through a bid process. That's how this ultimately was done. There are only 2 organizations that showed interest other than Casella in the project, and those other organizations decided not to pursue it. And without getting into a lot of details, if you wanted to, you can, but there was $23 million that was ultimately paid by Casella to end up operating this landfill. The issue before you oftentimes is the definition of waste. And as a former environmental manager, this is often where the confusion comes. A waste is not a waste until it's a waste. And I'll explain that to you. Household trash, if it comes in here for energy, is not considered a waste until it no longer can be used for its intended purposes. So if it can't be burned, then it's a waste. So is the material coming from out of state? Yes. Is it going to Lewiston? Yes. Is it being recycled? Yes. I was down there, I visited. 70% of the materials is in fact being reused now. At first, when I first got involved in this, I pictured this place in Lewiston that there'd only be, oh, let's take this piece out, let's take this piece out and send the rest on. I went down there and actually saw it, and I was extremely impressed by it. There's about 14 people working, sorting these waste materials out, getting wires, plastics, you name it out of it. So you have to be careful with that definition. There's those people who don't like it. My recommendation ultimately to you, and that's a federal definition of which we've accepted as a state definition. If you don't like that definition, then we need to revisit it as a legislature. And the third thing that I'll bring up to you is that I and my committee have not heard any complaints from the town of Old Town or the local advisory committee. They're concerned. They've been in front of our committee, and recently we almost had a bill that I heard a lot from the town of Old Town, which basically does what I think we should do ultimately, is get out of the landfill business as a state. But we're not there yet. There's a lot of work, moving parts in this thing. But I haven't heard any complaints about the operating agreement. I have not heard any complaints from the town. There's some concern about conflicts with the department and the state planning office. Well, just recently the state planning office is going to be dissolved, and I'm sure if you wanted to, the commissioner can better handle for you how that conflict, if it's going to take place. But, personally, my recommendation to you, there's other bigger issues for you to work on than this. This is one that I think in the next legislative session, I anticipate we're going to spend a lot of time with it because of the determination of whether we're going to continue to own this landfill or we're going to change businesses.
Thank you, Senator. Do folks have questions for Senator Savello while he's with us? Senator Creighton.
Thank you. I don't know if it's for Senator Savello or for Beth, but I guess I would like to know whether Casella is out of compliance with the regulations that they are charged with.
I think, actually, you may be able to answer them, but to my knowledge, no.
And then I guess my second question is, what are we being asked to look at? I'm just not sure.
That would probably Beth. You don't need me.
Yes. I've had discussions with Senator Savello, and I just want to make sure my understanding is correct. To the extent that people are upset with stuff that's being brought up to Juniper Ridge and disposed of there, the problem from your perspective is the definition of waste. They are complying with, from your view, with the current definition of waste. Maybe as a policy matter, we might want to be changing the definition of waste, but that's a legislative matter, but they are following the existing law from your perspective.
That's my interpretation of it. Having worked in the waste management business indirectly for 20 some odd years, yes, that is correct.
Chairman Burns.
Part of it also comes back to the definition of beneficial use of products, which we also dealt with in the LD1 here, the LD1 stuff.
Senator, one question that's been asked, one thing that's been suggested is a large portion of the waste of the materials are coming in from out of state. There's no way to change that as a short interstate commerce.
Because it's a state landfill, that's why we passed that law to prevent out-of-state waste. Out-of-state meaning coming directly from out-of-state into the landfill. That's why we put it in place. But because the stuff comes in, it's recycled. Some of it goes for daily cover, some of it goes for energy production. So remember, it's not a waste until it no longer can be used for intended purposes.
So the waste itself we could prevent from coming in, but under this definition, if it's usable materials, it can come and flow.
Yes,
Thank you.
that is correct.
Senator Mason.
Senator Savello.
Hello, Seth.
Very elementary question. What is intended purposes?
For energy, for example, if the
Okay,
waste,
just for energy,
just
yeah.
whatever you
Okay.
can use. If waste, as long as you can't use it, let me give you a great example. When I was at the mill, paint, oil-based paint is a hazardous waste if you have to just throw it out if you have anything left. I used to have a board, we just paint it, because it's being used for its intended purposes. So this board changed colors 1,000 times, but it was being used for its intended purposes.
Okay, thank you. Senator Sullivan.
Thank you, Senator. I was wondering if you could answer my question. I hear about the expansion of Juniper Ridge. Are we talking about land expansion,
Within the footprint that already exists.
so really capacity more than
Just increasing what they're not going to buy more land or anything like that. It's going
its
to be within that
capacity? Thank you.
Other questions for Senator Savello before we send him back to solve the mining problems of the world?
Ms. Gold,
Representative Bowman.
That's what we're looking for.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I only wanted to ask the question. I seem to be getting different indications of the situation. You're saying that there haven't been any complaints or problems, but we seem to have indications that
There are individuals that
Yeah.
don't believe what I've just told you. They have their opportunity to voice their opinion, but to my knowledge, no one has complained about the operating agreement. What I heard from the town of Old Town, which were involved in some of the hearings recently, was about whether we change the ownership of the landfill and make sure that it's a public process. But I have not heard anything from them. As a committee chair, there are those from DEP that can answer that question better for you, whether they violated their rules and regulations. They're just people, and I sympathize with them. This decision was made at an executive level about 6 or 7 years ago with very little public input, but it was a policy decision that was made by the state.
Yes, Chairman, first.
Where would those complaints and issues and concerns go? What's the
I would imagine the
problem?
operating agreement would go to the state planning office and the DEP if they were violating their licenses and their rules.
What about DEP?
DEP, if they violated anything related to the water quality licenses, wrong waste going to the landfill, that's where it would go.
Other questions for the Senator? Yes, Senator Bowman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't want to prolong this, but is there a way to prevent people bringing their stuff from out of state as these recyclables get more valuable, that they separate them there and then a larger percentage of the stuff they bring here becomes waste? Is there a way to...
I think this is a personal opinion, but I think you're on the right track. I think more and more we go to what they call single sort systems, which many of your towns may have in fact gone to, where you don't worry about sorting your recyclables out, you just bring them in bulk and it gets recycled. I think you're going to, my prediction, we'll see if I'm right or wrong, is that we will see an increase in the break the 40% barrier that we can't get by on recyclables in the state. Because people don't want to recycle. If you're going to throw away something, if you want to make sure it's reused for its intended purposes or reused, you got to make it easy. When you make it complicated, some people just don't want to deal with the complication. But I think that's what ultimately will happen, Senator.
Other questions?
Thank you for your indulgence.
Thank you for taking your time.
Thank you.
Now, Beth will answer Senator Sullivan's question.
Senator Craig's motion. I don't remember what Senator Sullivan's.
My question, I
I
snuck
so
into,
rudely interrupted you.
yes, and I so stealthily snuck it into Senator Savello, and it got a very simple capacity, and that's exactly what I wanted to hear. I now understand when they talk about enlarging, we're not talking about land mass, we're talking about the capacity of landfill.